Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to the regular series of Shouting into the Void, which is supposed to be regular and weekly, but hasn't been for a long time. It should have been last week, but upon editing the video, there was some audio issues, so we had to delete that recording, and we are re-recording this episode. So lucky you.
In true Doctor Who fashion, we made a
Yes,
lost episode.
yes,
It
literally.
was the only way.
Um,
I'm genuinely surprised it's taken this long for that to happen. So,
Yes, but
you
this
know,
is. I don't think we've had to re-record anything before. We might have had to do little bits when the internet's cut out, but nothing as major as this
yeah.
one. But either way, it's annoying because this is a whole week after we did film it. So it's now been about a week and a half for us in terms of seeing this episode. So things might be a bit. I can't remember. Um, Also,
Yeah.
we
I
know
don't
we
remember
know.
anything about this episode.
Yes. Well, that's the other thing we'll go on to. We might know each other's positives and negatives, depending on what we can remember from last week. So things might not be as energetic and as surprising as they might
This will
be.
be the worst episode so far.
Yeah. We're also both recording this after we finish our work days, so that might also play into the lack of energy. But we will see how it goes. But yes, if as it has been a while, this is the weekly show where we talk about Doctor Who episodes from 2005 onwards. We've been rewatching them, and we've rewatched all the way up to Series 6, Episode 4, The Doctor's Wife, which I think, Liam, you have some pretty bold opinions of.
It's not bold, it's correct.
Hmm. Sure.
This might be my favorite episode of Doctor Who, maybe.
Mightn't it? Maybe.
And by
You've
that I
never
mean
mentioned
it
it
is.
before.
No, I'm very subtle about my love of this episode, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This episode sees the Doctor, Amy, and Rory sort of following a distress call to a pocket universe where they discover this sentient planet, I guess, or a sentient being inside a planet, whichever way you want to call it. And two weird people that have been stitched together, and a TARDIS lady. And they
And a
eventually
nude.
make their way. And a nude. I forgot about the Ood. Poor Ood. Everyone
Everyone
forgets
always
about
does.
the Ood. And they have to stop the sentient planet from stealing the TARDIS.
Yeah. Michael
About
Sheen's doing some bad shit.
Michael Sheen is doing some good voice acting, so good that you don't realize it's Michael Sheen. So yes, what overall your thoughts of this episode?
Sorry.
Uh huh.
Thanks for watching. I think I made that
Yeah.
joke when we first did it.
You did.
But now I'm really like, let's finish this. For God's sake. But yeah, I love this episode. I've gone on record a couple of times, maybe 3 times tops over the past 2 years, that this is my favorite episode of Doctor Who. It remains my favorite episode. I adore it. It's emotional, it's funny, it's a really cool idea. I think there's some great character stuff in there. There's some great world building in there. It's just a culmination and like a little bubble, if you will, of everything that I love about Doctor Who, kind of contained in this little bubble universe. And yeah, I adore it. I still adore it. It's great. No more questions.
Yep, fair enough. I also quite like this episode. I do really like it. Struggled for negatives for most of it. The ones I have are very nitpicky.
Not Boomtown.
Yeah, basically that's the one major negative. That's why it's a 1 out of 10. But yeah, there's lots to like in this episode, from the cast to the whole plot and everything that goes on. But obviously we will discuss those in detail as we talk about our positives and negatives. So we normally have 3 positives, 3 negatives. We'll have some other minor positives that we'll touch on throughout this video, which will be more than the 3. But I think we both have 3 negatives, no additions.
Yeah.
Which is fair. So again, as it's your favorite episode, you can go first.
Thanks.
What's your first one?
My first positive is the concept.
Same.
Really? Oh my
Yes.
God. I am shocked.
You had no idea, did you?
I had no idea that you were going to agree with that first positive. My God.
Wow.
Wow. What a concept. Literally. It's such a cool idea. It's something, you can't really believe they haven't done this before. It's something I don't think they could really do again without it maybe not hitting quite as hard as this. But I really think they explore all the key factors that they need to with the idea. It's examining the longest running and always will be the longest running relationship in Doctor Who. And it's just, I think, so brilliantly executed. The cast do it brilliantly. I think it's written wonderfully by Neil Gaiman, absolute Chad. And yeah, it's just, it's so special. I didn't realize I needed an episode like this, and then when it kind of we realized what was going on, because obviously there weren't really any plot spoilers about this one leaked beforehand. When he kind of realized what the idea was, I'm like, this is insane. This isn't something they could have done in like series 1 or 2. I'm glad they kind of, they took their time before exploring a concept like this, because there's going to be some people, well, a lot of people who haven't watched the classic series. So I'm going to realize, I guess, after until a couple of years in, just how important the TARDIS is to the show and how deep that relationship is. Most people go most of series 1 without realizing the TARDIS is alive. So, I like that it's a slow burn payoff. You're like, oh wow, of course there needs to be an episode like this, and I think it's just handled so brilliantly. Can't believe they hadn't done it already in a way, but also I think it's the perfect time to do it. And they explore all the avenues I'd love to see explored from it. They address some key things that I think you'd want the Doctor and the TARDIS to argue about or learn about. Some unexpected things as well, but the heart of it is a very emotional bond between a man and his ship, as they kind of explore in that last scene as well, which we'll get onto more specifically a bit later on.
Yep, I think that's fair. There's not much I can really add on to that. Just that, it's taken a while to get to this, but you're right. If it came in like series 2, it might be a bit like doesn't really fit. I think this is the perfect time to do it because effectively it's portrayed the TARDIS as a love interest.
Imagine this episode with Rose. Imagine what she'd be like.
That's exactly why they couldn't do it in series 1 to 4. Because at least with this one, Amy's, they couldn't really do this in series 5 when Amy's a bit funny, but because this time they're sort of settled as a companion duo, it gives a space for the Doctor to sort of have these other people come in, which is I think why River becomes more prominent sort of further down the line as well, because she can fit in there without sort of stepping on some toes. Which I think works, and this is a good start for it. And just the whole just portrayal of the TARDIS. It might have been done before in Big Finish or various comics or whatever from Classic Who, but it's never been done, in the main show before, which is a strange idea for considering that, it's not something that would be out of the realms of possibility in the show. It's the kind of thing that you think they would have done quite early on, but I think it definitely fits with now with how the show's gone and sort of how much more of a person the TARDIS is made to be. From 2005 onwards, I think it's definitely more of a character in New Who than it is in Classic Who. And that's what makes this episode work and what makes the concept even better, especially if even in Classic Who, if you think this is a 46-year-old relationship at this time ish, on screen at least. I can't remember.
Something like that, 46, 47.
Yeah, something like that.
2011, wasn't it? Series 6.
So about 47, 48-ish year relationship.
48, yeah, because 2013 is the anniversary, isn't it?
Yeah. So still, that's almost a 50-year relationship between these two characters that hasn't really been explored before New Who had come around, and this is sort of the culmination of everything. It takes a very good writer to pull that off, and I think they did it successfully. Your second positive, what is that?
My second is Saran Jones as Aegis / TARDIS / sexy / whatever you want to say. She's great. It's one of those things I can't imagine anyone else doing it. I'm sure plenty of people could, but I just love the doctory energy she brings to it, which I think makes sense because there's one constant presence in the TARDIS's life that it has to kind of, I'm in a flesh body. Who do I know who has a flesh body? And maybe that's how I should act. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I love how she portrays that. We don't spend a lot of time at all with like Aegis as she was at the start of the episode before her soul sucked out, but there is still a clear kind of contrast with like the wacky energy and stuff that the TARDIS has in her body. F in the chat for Aegis. and yeah, I just love. I mean, the dialogue also really helps, but you truly believe like this is just a spaceship with its own kind of mind and consciousness that's been chucked into this lady's body. Doesn't really know how to respond to that, but it's just so brilliant. And Saran Jones bounces off Matt Smith fantastically well. You know, the little moments where all of them are together as well, I think are nice. Her thinking Rory's the pretty run. You know, they kind of have little moments of connectivity, but the focus is obviously going to be on her relationship with the Doctor, because that's what this whole concept and episode is about. And yeah, she's brilliant. I think she can be really funny in it. And her performance in that last scene in particular, when she's like saying hello to the Doctor, you know, she's wonderful. And I think it just speaks to the caliber of Saran Jones as an actress, really, because she's one of those people who's in everything on British TV. Saran Jones probably has been in it at some point. You know, like David Tennant, he's fucking everywhere. Yeah, I think she's just such a good choice and such a good fit for the part. And she's wonderful, and I'm always drawn to her whenever she's on screen, whether she's speaking backwards or biting Matt Smith's neck, or piloting a junk TARDIS, anything like that. She's great, and you kind of picture. I think if someone told you, like, well, what would the TARDIS be like if she was a woman? I think you would picture something very similar to how Saran portrays it, and so I think she kind of gets it bang on. She's great.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that kind of ties into my second positive as well, because while she's not the main one, mine is sort of the guest cast, which is effectively 4, 5 actors, if we count the Ood actor as an actor. I mean,
Wow.
he's an actor, but you know,
okay,
you know what I mean. You know, it's not as if there's he doesn't have to portray emotion, I guess, in a nude mask. You know what I mean. Either way, the guest cast, great. From Saran Jones as the TARDIS is excellent. You know, all the points you mentioned is great. I'm surprised again it's taken her this long to get to the show. You know, and you could argue that maybe now that the show's moved on a bit, she would have made a potential candidate to be a Doctor herself, but
she still might.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, true. Yeah, because they could have
a lot of Doctors were in it before the Doctor.
Yeah, they had Peter Capaldi in it, and that's
some Doctors are the Doctor again. So. Anything goes nowadays.
Yeah, no, you're right. You are right. Everything's changed now, so it doesn't matter. She could be in again.
She'd be a great Master, I think.
Oh, that's true.
I'd love her to be like a proper like Delgado-esque Master. She'd be great.
Well, maybe when you run the show,
when I'm showrunner,
yeah, just drop a message to Russell like, hey, if you've not got a Master yet. Don't know what you're planning for Neil Patrick Harris, but if you've not got a Master yet, if you want to,
if they're not the toy maker, it's the Master, then we'll have to.
Yeah, we'll see. But yes, the rest of the cast from the actors to play Auntie and Uncle, I think they're great. They're excellent throughout this whole episode. I mean, the whole episode throughout the 20 minutes
the
they're in
half of the episode, the first act.
Yeah, you know, from sort of talking through the girl before she becomes a TARDIS to be like, yeah, this is how you're gonna die. To them being so like blasé and yep, we're dying, see you later, and then just like going.
That's how I want to go out.
It is.
Oh, it's time for me to pop off. Just...
I think
I'm against it.
They add, I think, a bit of levity in this episode that might not have been there otherwise, because it does get quite dark, quite emotional towards the end, and I think this at the start definitely puts you higher in like the calm, like, oh, this is fun, for you to then go, oh, as it goes on, which is good. I like that. And then also Michael Sheen as House. I think that's all he's called, isn't it? I don't think he has another name.
Just House, yeah.
I think it's just House. He's great. You know, you can't sell it's Michael Sheen. I don't know how he does it with his voice. I don't know if it's put through any like other speech changes or whatever, but either way, he is definitely spooky, and he is quite not malevolent, but like just terrifying. Like he's a disembodied voice, and yet you get the sense of threat that there is there, even though you know there's not, in theory, there's not much he can do, especially outside of the TARDIS. There's not much he could do.
But no physicality. He still has a lot of personality to him.
Yeah, exactly. I think it takes a good a good script and a good actor to pull that all across and to do that. And yeah, obviously the Ood is great. It dies naturally as an Ood does.
Yeah,
big F.
What the Ood do?
poor Oods. One day they'll live if they're not stuck in between dimensions or in a prison.
Yeah, they got free from slavery. What more do they want?
Not to die.
To live long and happily? No, ridiculous.
Oh, what a mare. But yeah, I think the whole supporting cast is great in this. And they didn't put a foot wrong. It's not a big cast. I think that helps as well. It helps them all stand out, and it gives them all ample screen time that they might not have had. Was it a different episode? Your third positive.
My third positive is the goodbye scene between the Doctor and TARDIS, Aegis, sexy, what do you want to call her? Probably my favorite scene in the episode. It is very much, again, an emotional climax, I guess, that you may not necessarily expect, because you're just so in the ride of and just loving the idea of the TARDIS is a woman, they're joking around with it, they're having fun with it, and you kind of forget oh damn, they can go some emotional places with it. I think you start to get that, once House starts messing with Amy and Rory, and oh wow, this is taking a turn. And the Doctor finds all these Time Lord cubes and stuff and realizes they're all dead. And and now Rory's being tortured, and no, oh dear,
now Rory's dead.
They come for him at night. Oh dear.
Yep.
And then they lean more into the fact that this body's clearly dying and burning up, and Aegis doesn't have very long left. And oh boy, how's this going to go? And then just that whole little scene, and just the simplicity of the payoff that Aegis just wanted to say hello, and that's all the TARDIS is wanting to say to the Doctor. Now that she has the chance, in their final conversation, she gets to say hello. I think that's so wonderful. And again, payoff you didn't even need of that relationship between the Doctor and the TARDIS. Saran's brilliant in that scene. Matt's brilliant in that scene. That shot of him crying when she disappears gets me every time. He's so good. And yeah, it's a very well earned moment, I think. And you talked about the very limited cast. It allows plenty of time to focus on what the episode needs to focus on, and develop the highs and lows of the Doctor and the TARDIS and their relationship in this one. So it feels very emotionally satisfying, even though it's quite bittersweet, really. And I like Amy and Rory's reaction to it as well, Rory being sad boy. So yeah, it's just a brilliant emotional kind of gut punchy end to a very sci-fi plot, which is what I love about Doctor Who, that it can do that. And that's why this episode is such a great summary of everything I love about the show, really. And that scene is the prime example of it.
Yep, I think that's fair. It's not one of my positives, but it definitely is, the highlight, I guess, of the episode. The highlight's the end. When it ends, that's the best bit.
You son of a bitch, take that. They made it come in there.
But yeah, I do agree. It is a excellent scene, and again, it's well acted throughout. And it does have, because you've spent time with these characters, because of the minimal cast, you do get closer to the TARDIS, and and it's also they've got 48 years of history there anyway, so there's already going to be a baseline of emotional to it. And yeah, it's great. Speaking of TARDISes, my main positive is the whole building a new TARDIS out of the junkyard stuff. I just think it's neat.
It's fun. There were so many of those in the original version of this.
I just think it's neat. I just think they're neat. Yeah, I mean, it is. I think it's a cool concept. I know probably people get annoyed because, they'll argue that, a TARDIS has grown and it's an organic thing and it can't just be built and blah, blah, blah. But I don't care.
I mean, and it wouldn't have worked if Aegis wasn't there to do the magic-y thing to get it to work.
No,
so it's not
exactly.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. But I like it. I like the TARDIS graveyard where you see all the different types of ships it became or they become and that kind of thing, and just the sort of the junkyard style of it. It's a great style for this mini console, and hats off to the child that drew it. For Blue Peter. I think I assume it's Blue Peter, not
Blue Peter,
Doctor Who, the Adventure Show, or whatever the hell it was called.
No, was that even a thing at this point?
I
think
don't know.
that was
That might have
no, because
stopped,
Doctor Who Confidential was still going for Series 6.
Only just, I think. I think it was in
Yeah,
the
because
last
it
couple, wasn't
ends after Series 6. Yeah.
Poor from BBC. Can't believe they did that.
Oh, well.
But anyway, yeah, building the TARDIS, it looks great. You know, just it's got that classic look, but with the whole scrapyard style. And I think it's great. And yeah, it's probably never gonna happen again because you need the whole TARDIS junkyard thing. It would only really happen in this one specific story, which helps. And you know, all the TARDIS interiors in this. When they go back to 10's TARDIS interior, I think it's also great. With the two consoles in that room as well, where the one appears and kills the Ood.
Oh, nephew.
You know, I think the whole use of the TARDIS consoles rooms in this is great. And yeah, I think even it shows that even without the TARDIS, quote unquote, inside the TARDIS, it can still function, if that makes sense. It still has the power to rejoin itself and to help the Doctor in some ways. But yes, additional positives. What have you got?
Additional. Matt Smith. That's kind of my given, obviously.
Yep.
But he is particularly great in this one as well. I agree with you with the side characters. I would die for them all. I just adore them. Auntie and Uncle. I was genuinely obsessed with those two when this episode first came out. So much so, I was very excited when they made an uncle action figure and very annoyed that they never made an auntie.
God, how sexist of them.
That's probably what it was. They made an Adris at least, so that's nice. And it came with some tiny little cubes. I remember getting that. But it was during that phase where they put the flesh bags with all the action figures. And disgusting. God, go away. I never opened them. Just throw them
they
out.
Aged. I bet if you open one now, it'd be horrendous.
There are some unopened ones in my big box of figures.
They're either going to be terrible and like moldy and stink, or they'll just be exactly the same because of the amount of chemicals that are in it. There's no in between.
It's probably leaked out and ruined all my action figures. My pension.
Deformed. All of them are just deformed. Oh no!
No, they're all flesh now.
Ruined.
Oh god, I'm ruined. I'm never going to financially recover from this. So yeah. Anyway, side characters, they're great. Big tangent there. And then some extra little character moments that I really enjoy, particularly with Amy. I love that when she thinks of delight and what that means to her, it's her wedding day. Shows how far she's come. That I do remember talking about before in our previous recording.
Even with the 11 candles, she doesn't think of the Doctor, and I was like, great stuff, Amy. Well in.
You're moving on. Thank God. Leave all that nonsense behind. So yeah, I really like that little moment. And everything with Amy and Rory kind of leaning on, supporting each other as they go through awful psychological torture.
Hell, probably they literally go through hell.
Yeah, a lot of therapy to get over. And yeah, poor old Rory. What he
literally
I guess at 1 point. He's not actually going through it because just what Amy's seeing, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I just like little bits like that as well, and how Auntie and Uncle are. They just
Rory gets off scot-free. Nothing happens to him.
Yeah, he's absolutely fine.
He doesn't see anything. Amy gets blackout. Amy sees him dead. Amy sees him waiting.
House is sexist.
Nothing. Yeah.
That's right. I said it. So yeah, I just love little bits like that as well, that kind of sprinkle in. And like you said, with such a smaller cast, everyone does have those moments to shine. So Auntie and Uncle get some great moments. Amy and Rory get some great moments. And of course, the Doctor and Adris, who are like the main focus, have a lot of great stuff as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My additional positives are the main ones, sort of the visuals of this episode. I think there are some scenes that look great when House is like invading the TARDIS and it's got all the gas and stuff that goes in. When the TARDIS breaks through to the other universe, even the TARDIS corridors, they look great. You know,
corridors. Cool corridors.
Yeah. And then, you know, even the visual design of Auntie and Uncle as well, where, you know, with the funny ear and the chunky hand and all that kind of thing. All really lends itself to the story. And sort of, you know, we also spoke about Matt Smith, who's great in this, obviously, as he is in every episode, because it's always a given that the Doctor tends to be one of the best things about an episode of Doctor Who, funnily enough.
They should rename the show after them, really.
You'd think that would just call it The Doctor instead of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
just easier, wouldn't it? And then sort of the other positive is the twist about the Time Lords are all dead and I've consumed them and I'm actually entrapping other Time Lords with their messages. Lol. I think that's a neat twist, and I like as I keep mentioning, I always like when they do Time Lord stuff, because I just think Time Lord stuff is neat. And it is. I just think me with the Time Lords. I just think they're neat.
You have your little Time Lord action figures. I just think literally.
They're neat. But yeah, I do. I like all the Time Lord stuff. That's why whenever they're mentioned, I'm always like, oh, lore. Oh, give me lore. And this is a good example. I love the scene where you hear all the Time Lord distress calls and all that kind of thing. I think that's a really good
shout
scene,
out to the I'm still alive.
Yeah.
He owns that role. He's like, I have my 3 seconds of fame. I am delivering the voice performance of my life.
They just went round the BBC office and went, "Could you give us a quick line, please?" Just get them all.
It's someone who like pitched an idea that they rejected, so they just like locked him in a cupboard. Like, I'm still alive.
Can you give us a quick quote, please? I'm still alive.
Thank you.
But yeah, that scene is great. And yeah, I'm a sucker for Time Lord stuff. So unfortunately, as with every episode, we do have to move on to the negatives. However, I can't imagine we'll have too much to talk about.
No.
I remember your first one because it's the obvious one. But your first negative is
obvious one. It's some dodgy ADR.
Some terrible ADR.
I'm trying to be nice. But yeah, this is my only like legit complaint. My others are like, I wish they maybe did this. But this I'm like, no, this is bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a few moments in it. One of them is when the Doctor and Age was looking over the TARDIS junkyard, and she's like, "You don't care that it's impossible," and he's like, "Anything's possible as long as you're alive." Then it cuts back to them, and it's fine. But I'm like, "Yeah, you're not saying that. Your jaws aren't moving.
You're just staring in front of you."
Yeah. But the worst offender, worst offender, is Eamon Rory running into the old console room, and Eamon's like, "What is this place? Control room?" And she's clearly not speaking, and like.
It's not even matched to like, it's such a cavernous room and the voice is just so like studio. It doesn't fit
and she
at all.
Doesn't need to say it. We can see it's an old control. I know she doesn't know and she's questioning that to Rory, but why is Rory gonna bloody know? He knows less than you. And then
Rory doesn't even reply either.
No,
so it's not like he goes, "Oh."
Martha Dava couldn't do the ADR sessions. So she's just there like.
That's why she gets 2 lines.
They always intended.
The other one should have been Rory's.
They intended Rory to reply and completely forgotten the episode aired and like, oh shit.
Oh no.
It's just silence.
I forgot to put them in.
Oh my god. Michael Sheen, say something. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, every TV show has dodgy ADR. But yeah, this is one of them. It is what it is. Thankfully, it's only like those 2 like big massive offenders, and the Amy one in particular really grinds my gears. But I enjoy the episode too much to really care. I'd rather ADR be an issue I have with an episode than anything else, really. Like plot wise or acting wise, whatever. So could be worse. I'm grateful for that, but it still can take you out at the moment. I think maybe not when I first watched it, but once I realised like they're not speaking.
Once you know more about TV, it's like
it's the what is it, the How I Met Your Mother thing, like the glass smashing, when you kind of realise something's off or something. It's like that basically.
Yeah, and it's fair because it is my third negative. That one is especially when they're entering the 10th Doctor's TARDIS room. I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. This is the worst thing I've ever heard. And like, it doesn't even make sense because maybe they just got to the editing suite and they went, oh shit, we should really have them say something here to like contextualize it or whatever. I don't know why you would need it anyway, but maybe they filmed where it left and then realized they didn't film that line. I don't know, because there's no excuse for them not to be able to record the dialogue good enough in that scene, because it is a set in itself.
It's a TARDIS set.
It's not like it's outside in the wind where they have to re-record over because they can't hear them, which they might have had to do for the TARDIS junkyard one if they were actually on a set with a quarry at the edge of a quarry ledge or something where maybe.
I think they were for that. I remember seeing set pictures.
there's maybe you've got an excuse there, but with the 10th Doctor one, it's just unnecessary. And the lines
how many scenes have been shot on that console room set, guys? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the line's not even necessary because you don't need to say it. Just change one of the earlier
famous
lines
ass control room. Like, we know what it is, Amy.
Yeah. It's unnecessary. I think that's what makes it even worse. But never mind. It's a small thing that I can overlook. Your second negative.
My second. Let's have a look. What was it? It's almost as if I haven't checked these notes because I didn't think I need to check them again. There you go. Oh yeah, I think it would have been cool if they'd kind of dragged out the Time Lord side of things a bit more, and the mystery of like, are they alive? Are they not? Obviously, they do have the whole TARDIS thing to get on with, and I'm glad that they did that. But should this episode have maybe been like an hour or something, I think it would have been great to lean into that a bit more, because I think it's a really cool idea. I think you could have a whole episode of the Doctor goes to this place where there might still be Time Lords alive, and you spend the whole episode of him or her or them kind of, unraveling that mystery, and whether or not they're any there or not. It's the journey that matters, right?
I mean, you could have a two-parter where that's the trick, is that he thinks he's discovered this secret place of Time Lords, but it turns out they're all robots or something, and in the meantime his TARDIS has been nabbed. And you have the second episode being the TARDIS stuff.
Yeah, which would be cool. Sadly not, but it is what it is. At least we got a ganger two-parter. That's great.
Yay!
I hope I love it, but I won't. But yeah, I just wish that that could have been a really interesting thing, because when they do lean into that and we see the Doctor getting quite pissed off, that's kind of building up to his anger, obviously, in A Good Man Goes to War and stuff like that. I think it's really great, and I love seeing that side of the Doctor getting pissed off about that, and him talking to Amy about being forgiven and everything. It was nice to kind of get those little time war-y mentions. So it would have been fun and cool if they could have dragged that out a bit more, but I understand that it's a 45-minute episode, and I wouldn't take out anything that's in there in place of it, because they did kind of explore it a bit. So yeah, it would have been nice, but again, not truly necessary.
Yeah, and I think wasn't there something about how they might have had an idea of the 50th in mind for this one, so maybe they didn't really want to touch too heavily on Time Lords and just sort of sprinkle them in there so that they could.
They were definitely thinking that far ahead.
Yeah. So it kind of makes sense from that angle. But yes, I do agree. As someone who thinks the Time Lords are neat, I would want more. My next negative is the forced reference to the season arc. Again, it's a big nitpick, but it's just unnecessary. I think, just to be like in the same room, be like, you're still thinking about him. You're still thinking about him dying, aren't you, Amy? No one, it's just. I think I mentioned, in the Lost episode, that they could just do this. They could just have this in their bedroom. They could do this away from the main control room, but we just need like a scene that's like sets the scene in terms of what they're getting up to when this message arrives. But I don't think it needs to be like, hey, remember the season arc that we only left 2 episodes ago, especially with the maybe it's their next chance they get before the 2-parters, and they're like, we need to reference every other episode in the whatever. But
it's for the Neil Gaiman fans who only watch this one.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, probably. But yeah, I don't think it's needed. And I wouldn't necessarily mind if they were just in a separate room and then they went to see the Doctor or something. But it's because it's done so blatantly.
Build one less corridor and build them a bedroom set.
Yes, or even have them in the corridor, and then you can establish there are corridors at the start, and you can be like, and then they go into the. But yeah, I just don't think it's necessary. And maybe it's because we know the show and we know the season arc, and we're like, we know what the point
probably
is.
Because we know where it all leads and it's all wrapped up and stuff. So it might not be too bad. Chomping at the bit for more at the time.
Yes, exactly. But never mind. Your final negative, I believe.
Definitely. Again, it's I wish they maybe could have done this if it had been longer or whatever. Just not enough Auntie and Uncle, because I love those weirdos. I think the actress and actor who portrayed them are just great. Maybe if we did have more of them, I wouldn't love them as much as I did. Who knows? But I just think they're so weird. And I tried to avoid saying neat. I tried so hard, but you just said it anyway. And yeah, it's just, on a surface level, you're like, oh, look at these like funny, odd characters. But when you really think about it, it's also just showing how awful House is and how manipulative and gross he is to make these patchwork people. One of which is made of like a time arm.
Doesn't even like get rid of them and get new people in. He just keeps them alive.
He keeps them as pets. And then as soon as he realizes, oh, I don't need them anymore because I want
as soon as he leaves, he doesn't even take them with him. He's like, bye.
It's not like it's not even like, oh, they just drop dead. Like they know that they're about to die as well. He makes sure that they know they're dying before they die.
Like he could have taken them with him. There's no reason why he couldn't have gone, right, we're going, let's get in the TARDIS. The Ood got in there. But
he has a thing for ooze. What can I say? Tentacles. I mean,
well,
it is what it is.
Whatever floats your boat.
Never, yeah. Oh God, I've gone to a bad place with that image. Get out of my head. But anyway, I really like them, and I think the side characters are very strong in this episode at a base level. Anyway, but they're just so much fun to watch on screen. I would hopefully, when we get a Target novelization, we can really delve into that history between them and like, how did they meet? How did they become patchwork people? How did they end up there? Were they Time Lords originally, and they've just been replaced by so many different parts? They're now not.
You'd think they would then regenerate, wouldn't they? But I guess it depends. But then, in theory, they've only been replaced by Time. I don't know.
Yeah, who can say? Who can say? Yeah, I mean, when Auntie died, the hand, of course, his hand didn't regenerate or anything. That would have been funny.
True.
That would have been
just a hand.
Oh God, a torturous existence. Oh no, get it out of my head. Done it again. But yeah, they're great, and I just wish that the story, had more of a place for them beyond the first act. But I also understand that they don't need to go beyond the first act because that's what they're there to do. They're there to suck Aegis' soul out basically and explain what House is all about. And once that purpose has been served, House can go and get the TARDIS and all of that jazz. But yeah, I love them. I think they're really fun little side characters. And it would have been nice to have a bit more of them. But with like Target novelizations, etc., there are realms of possibility where that can be something they explore. And I do think they are serviced well enough in the episode itself to not be like, oh, I'm mad about this.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I don't think we'll get a Target novelization anytime soon because Neil Gaiman is a busy boy.
He is a busy boy.
They probably can't afford to commission for him to write his Target novel.
I guess I'll have to make do with more Jenna Coleman in Sandman season 2. Never mind.
Unacceptable, to be fair.
Well, never mind.
But my final negative is just the whole fact that it was so easy for them to leave the universe and go to this pocket universe.
Yeah.
We've been told for effectively 5.5 seasons that it's so tricky to leave the universe. I'd have to destroy suns to even send a message, that kind of thing. And it's like,
the Doctor just didn't love Rose enough.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say it.
It's like, I'm just using some fumes. It's like, what? Sorry.
I saw a thing on Twitter the other day. It was some video. I don't know if it was Doctor Who people or something, and it was it was 10 being like, I burned up a sun just to say goodbye. And then it just cuts to this planet without a sun, and all the people are dying and freezing. That's hilarious. It's like the one I sent you. Like, how many women have you abducted? 2.47 billion. Yeah. Oh, so funny. But yeah, it just reminded me of that. But anyway.
But yeah, we've been told for so long that it's so hard to get out of the universe. The Time Lords can't come back because they literally cannot come back to the universe because they, for whatever reason. It's just inconsistencies. There's no line to be like, oh yeah, I've been working on this for years. Kind of hinting towards the fact that he might have gone back to, but there's nothing actually like, I'm using some time fumes or time rotor or something like that. I don't know what it was.
Deleting some rooms or
whatever. So
goodbye swimming pool.
It's just it's a bit inconsistent. It's a bit annoying, but especially because it doesn't even necessarily need to be in a pocket universe. You could just have this be a random planet in the universe that takes them there. But
but at least he's immediately punished and goes through a hard time.
He is immediately punished. Yes, that's true. Although to be fair, even when they get there, it's like, oh yeah, there's rift energy. It'll just recharge here, and it's like, oh, so even if there was an angry person, it's good to go.
We're not going back to Cardiff.
Never. we won't go back to Cardiff in, what year did this come out? 2011? In 12 years' time.
Definitely
Never
not.
again.
Mainly
yes.
Bristol.
That's true. I assume you've got no additional negatives?
No, of course I don't.
No, neither do I. So before we get on to rating out of 10, I believe you have some fun facts for us.
I do. Let's count how many you remember from when I told you them before.
None.
There are a lot of them, so let's make this quick, shall we? Even though you lovely viewers are hearing them for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, working titles for the episode included Bigger on the Inside and The House of Nothing. The episode was originally scheduled to be the 11th episode of Series 5, but was delayed due to, guess what? Budget restrictions. And the logic was written in its place. No! Thank you, Disney Plus. Allegedly. The episode offers the first concrete confirmation that Time Lords can change gender when they regenerate, a deliberate addition to the mythos on Neil Gaiman's part. I'm going to make my stamp in history if I'm writing an episode.
And it only took 6 years later to make that reality.
Yeah. Better than 47, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Neil Gaiman wanted a classic TARDIS console room to be used in the episode, but due to budget, shocking, one couldn't be constructed. Instead, the 10th Doctor's TARDIS console room was never taken down and stored secretly, waiting to be used in the episode.
I like the idea that they just picked up this warehouse and just like hid it somewhere, like put a big tarp over this warehouse. Like, oh, where's it gone?
What could it be? It's like when you wrap up a bottle of wine for Christmas. Like, what could be under that blanket?
What could wrap up a bike?
What could it be?
Yeah.
This is the first time the Doctor is shown piloting a TARDIS that isn't their own. The unfinished fourth Doctor story, Sharda, would have otherwise been the first, but it wasn't made. So good, I guess. Early drafts of the script included seeing more of Adris before her soul. Take your shoal off, woman. Before her soul was extracted. More backstory about the Corsair's relationship with the Doctor. More rooms in the TARDIS, burying Adris's body, and indication that House survived its defeat by escaping into Adris's corpse. I'm very glad we didn't get that scene.
Yes,
that sounds fucking horrible.
But hey, if you wanted to see more rooms in the TARDIS, boy, have I got an episode for you coming down the tracks next year.
It's an episode, all right.
You sure do see some rooms.
Fans can say it was an episode of Doctor Who.
Yep.
They can and they will, and they have.
It certainly is.
So yes, that's fun. And that would have been the ending had the episode been part of the run in Series 5, as at this point Rory would have been wiped from existence and therefore not part of the episode. But if you are interested in possessing corpses, watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness at now.
Yes, that is true, on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Not read by Neil Gaiman, but they probably watched this episode and thought, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, in 10 years' time.
Yeah. Look, they planned far ahead. There's
really
simply no time.
The first Avengers film hadn't even come out at this point.
Oh God, that's true. Yeah, this was the year. Oh, actually, did anything come out in 2011
was
the MCU?
Captain America.
Oh, Captain America. Yeah, of course it was. Yeah, and Thor.
Captain America. And Thor.
Oh, that's a hot take. I mean, it is a very good film.
It is a very good film.
What a man. Gaiman's original idea for the episode involved the Doctor being pursued by an enemy through the TARDIS. He changed this to the companion being the one pursued, as the Doctor's knowledge of his ship would have made it too easy for him to escape, which I think makes sense. He then made the TARDIS itself the enemy to avoid the simple cat and mouse formula, and came up with the idea for Adris to account for what happens to the TARDIS's mind during the attack. It all makes sense now.
It does.
The TARDIS corridors built for this story were standing sets available to use for any future stories. I don't know if they still exist. They didn't really use them other than something that we can say was an episode of Doctor Who.
It certainly was an episode.
I
would have to have a look to check that they're the same corridors. I don't know if they are or not. I would imagine and hope that they
It's only the year after, so I'd imagine
what a waste of budget it would be if they weren't the same sets.
Oh well, who can say? We will see. We'll pay attention. I won't pay attention. The Junk TARDIS console was the subject of a Blue Pizza competition to design a console for use in an episode of the show. Then 12-year-old Susanna Lear was the winner, who got to visit the BBC art department to help develop her design, and then saw the final product during a visit to the set. And I'm very jealous.
Very well.
Imagine winning that competition and then they make a toy of your design as well.
I hope they're still a fan of the show. Imagine like having this and then just hate the show now. I would be very depressed.
As long as she likes this episode, I guess.
I
Yeah, she
guess.
was
Well,
12
also
then.
imagine if you hate that. Yeah.
So
Well,
12.
12 plus
Wow,
10.
she's
basically.
11 years
23.
later and she's still younger than us.
Yep. We
we
wouldn't have been eligible for that Blue Peter competition.
wouldn't
They'd
have
have seen
been-
us and be like, "No, too old."
You ancient beings, get out of here.
Of what, 15, something like that. I don't know.
Oh God, I wish that were me. The idea of the TARDIS junkyard was a reference to the show's first episode, An Unearthly Child, where the TARDIS was first seen sitting in, you guessed it, a junkyard. Hooray! Adris speaking gibberish in her cell is actually the only water in the forest is the river backwards, a warning she later gives to the main trio in reference to River's identity revealed in A Good Man Goes to War, which I didn't know, and that's very cool. Gaiman originally envisioned Nephew as a new alien creature, but guess what prevented it? It's our friend, the budget.
Time. Oh.
No, you fool! There's plenty of time in Doctor Who. It's about time travel.
Oh, it's always one of two things. If it's not budget, it's time.
It's
if it's
true.
not time, it's budget.
It's true, but only one of them has been a recurring gag during
It's
this
true.
segment.
Yes.
You fool. But anyway, it's like you're not even listening to me.
What?
I nearly replied. So close. Damn it. But yes, as the budget didn't allow for the creation of a new monster, they decided to use a previously established alien settling on an Ood. Probably because it's the only costume that wasn't mouldy and
It
fallen.
wasn't a
to pieces.
Slovene.
That wasn't, sadly, not a Slovene.
Not a Slovene.
But one day, we will get them back, and the world will be peaceful.
Russell's been liking the Slovenia back comments. I'm hoping he's listening.
He knows what the fans want.
He really does.
What the real fans want.
He bought a Slovene pin and everything. He knows. Please,
Can't believe he'd otherwise buy a pin of a monster he himself created.
No,
Who'd have thought? The original opening scene featured the Doctor, Amy, and Rory being saved from being sacrificed by a group of aliens by the Hypercube. Gaiman rewrote the opening as the TARDIS console room scene when time didn't allow
There you
for the
go.
planned on location shoot. You were one too early there.
Yeah.
Happens to the best of us.
Mm.
Gaiman rewrote the scene to be about the Doctor and River, and it was titled Rain Gods, and it's included as an extra on the Series 7 box set. And it's a nice little scene. I like it. Additional script elements that were removed included an additional conversation between the Doctor and Amy near the start of the episode, an allusion to the fact that the chameleon circuit isn't broken and the TARDIS keeps the police box because she knows the Doctor likes it, and Adris telling the Doctor in their farewell that he's forgiven for his actions in the Time War, which is depressing.
Ironically, if they included that chameleon circuit line, people wouldn't complain. Well, people wouldn't have a leg to stand on when it comes to why is the fugitive Doctor's TARDIS a police box.
Yeah, but they would still
Makes
complain.
sense, but never mind.
This was the first story of Series 6 to be produced, which I guess makes sense if it's a leftover from Series 5 ideas. Gaiman based House's personality and treatment of Amy and Rory on AM or Am from Harlan Ellison's short story, I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream Mood. Ellison wrote many of the forewords in American Doctor Who novelizations and was therefore very pleased by Gaiman's shout out, which is wholesome. Gaiman chose the name Adris as it felt unusual but authentic and somewhat resembled the name TARDIS. Again, it makes sense. Arthur Darvill noted that the old TARDIS console room set had a cheese grater quality to the floor, so the cast found the scene where they're thrown to the floor again and again very uncomfortable to do. I would have claimed that back in expenses. Originally, I'm speaking, Connor. Originally, House was going to. Originally, House was going to be.
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, you don't. I feel
like
like you're not done. I'm goddamn. This is payback for the opening to the Midnight review, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Originally, House was going to be revealed as having been grown from a spore that entered the Bubble universe through a crack in time, and the Doctor would have seen House's true form to be a mollusk-like entity. And I'm very glad they didn't do that, because that sounds bad.
Gross. That's very gross.
Yeah, horrible. Horrible. When the episode was to take place in Series 5, Amy would have found her engagement ring, like at the end of The Lodger, when sent to get the sonic screwdriver from the Doctor's jacket. So you can see where it all fits in together. The Doctor's Wife was a fake title attached to The Caves of Androzani, which is Peter Davison's final story, which then producer John Nathan Turner had used to weed out a suspected leaker in The Office. Leaker?
Office? Oh.
plot twist. And finally, Moffat had already planned for the Great Intelligence to return in Series 7, and the initial plan was for House to be revealed as the Intelligence as a preview for this return, but they were unable to secure the rights to the character in time. F in the chat. But there you go.
Unlucky lads.
Unlucky.
Lovely fun facts. Some of which I remembered, some of which I did not.
Good. It wasn't a complete waste of time.
No, it was not. Right. Out of 10.
Right.
What are you giving the episode?
1.
One.
I thought long and hard about it, and I'm going to give it a 10.
Nice, I understand. Mine is a
Best
9.
episode.
A 9 for me. It's not Boomtown, so
I'll accept it. I'll accept a 9.
You know, it just needed a Slovene. Maybe we would have got there, but sadly no.
I understand.
But yeah, it is a very good episode. And I am sure the following episode will be just as good. Right?
It was always going to have a hard act to follow. I almost pity it. I don't feel sorry for it, but I pity it in a way.
So unfortunately, there won't be an episode next week because I will be on holiday for at least for probably 3 weekends. I think that we cover SOS, maybe 2. I can't remember. Either way, there won't be one next week. But when we are back,
fun.
How dare I? When we do come back, we will be talking about the next episode, which is The Rebel Flesh.
That's what they are. Flesh.
What do you remember about the episode? What are you looking
forward
Connor.
to? I remember the cliffhanger, which I do really like.
Still don't.
Oh, that's fine. I don't want to spoil it because it's good. I remember Jennifer. Who could forget? I'm really hoping it's one of those stories that is so goofy and silly that I can laugh at it. And I'm like, this is like, I know it's going to be bad and terrible, but I'm like, I had fun watching it because of how
needs
like
to be a fun bad film rather than a bad film. Well,
exactly. It needs to be like watching The Room.
Yes,
it's terrible, but my god, do you have a fun laughing at how silly and stupid it is? Hopefully that's the case, and it's not just like I'm bored, but it's probably going to be that.
Yes, especially
but
again,
it's been so long since I've seen it. I could be pleasantly surprised, and it's just fine. I'd be happy with just fine, but you know, I'm just going from what I remember and the fact that it is bookended by the Doctor's wife and a good man goes to war. It's unfortunate that this story is kind of here and that it's a 2-parter. I don't know if that was a necessary thing, but I guess we'll find out when we watch both parts and we look back. But yeah, not my favorite at all. I do think it's a bit dragged out. As with every Doctor Who story, you know, there are obviously good elements to it. The Doctor, Amy, Rory. That's about it.
Well, maybe not Rory in this one. I don't know. I can't remember.
Oh God, it's the whole thing with Jennifer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
At least they change it around, and Amy's the jealous one.
I guess.
That's some, I guess. But unfortunately, it's Jennifer. But yeah, I want to be surprised, but I'm really not expecting much. I know that's not the attitude to have, but it's just one of those things. When you first watch it, I guess it's kind of fine because you're like, oh, maybe the Doctor that dies is a ganger, and you can kind of get wrapped up in that. And I do think it's clever to kind of introduce them here as like planting that seed, and it's like another thing that can take the form of something else. And obviously, they obviously know where they're going with the Amy reveal, so obviously they need to do it because you know it does reveal at the end. I think that the Doctor came here purposefully because he knew that Amy was flesh and wanted to learn more about it. So you know that's neat.
But that's for the episode after this one. That's not even.
That's the episode after this one. Yeah, this is unfortunately a part 1 of a story that I'm not too excited to revisit. No. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. Probably not. I can't say I remember all that much about it. I think the Ganger designs themselves are cool, so I'm looking forward to seeing that be a bit creepy. But unfortunately, for every creepy shot of Jen in the makeup, and she's like, "Ooh," there's Jen with her big long neck and the big monstery thing. And we'll see. I think it's probably going to be a mixed bag. Hopefully, it's a mixed bag that I can have fun with, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I can't remember much about this. It's been a while since I've seen it. I just remember not necessarily not enjoying it, but it's a slog to get through. I don't think it needs to be a 2-parter. We'll find out. Don't forget the guy that has the son, that it's the son's birthday and the child can't act with the the toy. Remember?
Daddy, when are you coming home?
Yes.
Never.
So that will be fun to revisit. But luckily, we've got 2 weeks to worry about having to watch that. So, but yes, that will be coming next time. There's all sorts of other videos on the channel in the meantime if people want to have a gander. But until then, that's it. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.